Good morning, everybody. My name is Tim Hartman. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Government Executive Media Group, the parent company of Defense One. We're the division at Atlantic Media that launched Defense One about 4 years ago. Welcome to our 4th annual Defense One Summit. We are so happy to have this event annually. It's really become an agenda-setting event for the national security community, and we're very proud of what it's become today. We launched Defense One 4 years ago with the idea that we were going to cover the future of national security across the changes in technology, the new domains, the new challenges, the new frontiers that we are facing, the new management paradigms that the Department of Defense was facing. And we thought that if we covered the future, we would serve the audience in a way that would help them do their jobs and make the decisions that help protect our country. And I just have to say that at no time did we expect the future to be so present as it is today. The future has gotten nearer and nearer every year since we launched. Today's event will explore the themes of crisis, conflict, and continuity, especially in the transition to a new commander-in-chief. Throughout the day, we're going to sit down with national security experts and military professionals, and we're going to discuss the views, the goals, the predictions about a range of issues from daily combat in Iraq to the grand strategy games of the great powers. Throughout the day, we encourage you to participate in the conversation. We do have a hashtag that you can use to follow along the conversation and participate. It's hashtag DEF1Summit. That's DEFONE Summit. Also, be sure to check out the USO kiosk in the foyer where you can write a message to our troops. Before we get started with the program today, I'd like to take a moment to thank the underwriters. Without the support of our underwriters, we wouldn't be able to put on the great events that we do at Defense One. So please join me in thanking our elite underwriters, Dell EMC and IBM, and you'll be hearing from both of them later today. We have a lot of underwriters to go through that also support this, that I also mentioned briefly. Our strategic underwriters are Accenture Federal Services, Booz Allen Hamilton, and DRS Technologies. And our industry underwriters are Amazon Web Services and Intel, AT&T, Avnet, Alexium, Huntington Ingalls, Immix Group, Leidos, Lockheed Martin, Oracle, and Riverbed. Please join me in thanking them for their support today. We also have a number of partnerships that help make these possible. I already mentioned the USO. Make sure that you reach out to the USO people who are here today. And we have media partners with the Navy League and Sea Power. So thank you again to the underwriters. I'd now like to introduce Cameron Sherry, who's the Chief Technology Officer at Federal Dell EMC, who will give us some opening remarks today. Please join me in welcoming Cameron to the stage.
Thank you, Tim. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Nice day in Washington. We've survived election season. I don't know if the fireworks have stopped or just beginning. As I was talking to my wife last night about this, something came up kind of interesting regardless of what side you came on. This election cycle was a lot like listening to Howard Stern, right? So most people, when you listen to Howard Stern, people who actually didn't like Howard Stern listened an average of 35% longer than the people that did. So at the end, that tells me we're in for an interesting ride over the next couple of years. But the commentary today is about how do we manage crisis, conflict, and continue continuity. What's fascinating about that is as we look at where we are today as far as our military strength, our weapon systems are aging. The kinetic platforms are aging, but the requirements of the mission are exploding. And they're moving into a digital context. We have to be able to understand as we look at refreshing these weapon systems, whether they're kinetic or non-kinetic, the digital transformation is upon us. We're proud supporters of our military at Dell EMC because we recognize the value of digital transformation. But we also recognize the value that our mission CONOP has to change as we face future threats. Our imperatives as a country are still the same. Protect from chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear threat. Keep freedom of the seas available for all partners and allies. Protect our sovereign borders. And most importantly, protect our nation along with our allies. In this digital age, cybersecurity is becoming the next battlefront. So as we look at digital transformation, we have to look at how we not only foster refreshing these kinetic platforms, but secure them. And it's a great honor to be part of this group, part of this community, supporting not only the Department of Defense, but our intelligence community and civilian government. So we just want to close with thanking every warfighter, whether you're deployed, retired, have served, or in active duty, because without you, there's no great United States. So thank you all very much for the time this morning. We greatly appreciate it and enjoy the program.
Thanks for kicking us off, Cameron. Now we'll get to our main program. I'd like to welcome Kevin Barron to the stage. Kevin Barron is the founding editor of Defense One, largely responsible for the vision of Defense One and what it's become. He sets the editorial direction and vision for all of our beats and leads the talented team of writers and analysts that serve Defense One journalistically. Kevin is a veteran of Washington's defense and national security and foreign affairs scene, covering the military, the Pentagon, Congress, and politics. He's previously written for Foreign Policy, National Journal, Stars and Stripes, the Boston Globe's Washington Bureau, the Center for Public Integrity, and he currently serves as the Vice President of the Pentagon Press Association. Please join me in welcoming Kevin Barron to the stage.
Thanks, boss. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Welcome. So this is our 4th annual Defense One Summit. I can't believe it. I couldn't be happier. And we've had an interesting time running up to this summit this year, thinking about the past years and what we've talked about and who we've invited and all that we've had. We've had secretaries of defense, we've had the chairman, we've had joint chiefs, we've had the UN ambassador, members of Congress. And in all of those years previously, we've had different themes that have tried to encompass what the national security community, what reporters are thinking about, and where we think we're going. The mantra of Defense One always is the future defense. What's coming next? Where are the defense and national security leaders taking the country, taking national security, global security? Usually we had a pretty good handle on that. I think a lot of us had a pretty good handle on what we do until about 2 weeks ago when things really have changed. And suddenly we're in a new era of a whole lot of questions. So it was several months ago when they come to me and they say, so what's the theme going to be for this year's summit? And last year we did the Age of Everything because we thought, you know what, after ISIS, after Russia's resurgence, with cybersecurity, with Asia and China, we had a military and a national security scene that was really being asked to do everything. And I've written a little bit about this where I came to the Pentagon when Secretary Gates was the defense secretary. And Secretary Gates used to like to say, we can't do 100% of everything all the time. You need to make choices, and you need to make and accept some risks and decide, prioritize what you really want to do and be really good at. Everyone since then has said differently, has said, no, the Pentagon and the national security machine has to be able to do everything and be ready to do anything when called upon. And that hasn't changed. So where are we now? Well, with so much happening, I thought it's a good pausing point that was going to happen no matter who was elected. It was going to be a transition time. So we have crisis, conflict, and continuity. Crisis is the daily threats. When ISIS pops up, when the cybersecurity bomb hits, when ships bump in the night. Conflict are the strategic questions, which I think a lot of Washingtonians think about, the think tank row types, they think about, what is America's vision for the Middle East in 50 years from now? What is America's strategic place vis-a-vis Russia and their resurgence? What about Asia? Is China a threat? Is it not a threat? Should this be dealt with as an adversary or as a potential friend? That's the conflict side. Continuity, well, there was a lot of assumptions made that there would be a little bit more continuity than there's going to be from this current president to the next. But man, has that been all changed real fast. And there are a lot of questions, I think, for the folks who come to the summit, and you guys in this room, and people watching at home, or wherever you're watching on your phones, of what comes next. And for me as a reporter, who comes next? So last night we got an announcement. Lieutenant General Flynn, reportedly, is going to be named very soon, probably today, as the National Security Advisor for President-elect Trump. But beyond that, your guess is as good as mine. We do our reporting. I've seen a lot of reporting, but the fact is that for the last few years, The Republican national security teams that usually would be in waiting have been fragmented. This has been reported about for many years, whereas the Democrats have had 8 years to get their act together. And before then, ironically, modeling themselves after of the Republican networks, had formed a real legitimate and purposeful team of national security workers, professionals, to come in and be the deputy secretaries, the assistant secretaries, the real governing workforce of national security. I think it looks apparent that everyone's been caught off surprise. And the Republican side now has to scramble for those jobs and figure out if they're one of the establishment that was voted against when people voted for Donald Trump, or if they're going to be part of the Donald Trump team. Are they going to come in and what? It's just a fascinating story as a reporter. So I think the lineup of people that we have today should be a good vision, a good window into what comes next. We have a lot of senior officials from this administration who can now tell us, here's what they learned in 8 years, and here's what they're handing off to the next administration, what the challenges they see are, what the threats that they see are. And we have some other voices as well, just away from politics. We have technological leaders, we have industry leaders, we have specialists on Russia, on ISIS, on the Middle East. So I thank everyone for coming here today, and I hope that we all have a good, smart conversation. That's the other point of the Defense One Summit. There are a lot of press conferences. There are a lot of appearances at think tanks where people can sit unchallenged and say what they've come to say or what they're writing about. There are a lot of places where people come to make speeches. We discourage that here. We ask people that when they come to our summit, we don't want speeches, and we frankly don't do audience questions because we don't want press conferences. We don't want it to be taken over by others. We want a good 30-minute solid conversation with a top national security reporter who can maybe make some news, ask some questions about the day, but allow these national security leaders to tell us from their perch what they see are the challenges that they're facing now with their teams that they're managing, whether it's the Air Force in the case of the general, the chief of staff, or if it's the United States Senate's Armed Services Committee with Senator Cotton to come up next, or the Intelligence Committee, or DARPA and the advancements of technology, whatever it may be. So hopefully we'll have a good conversation. Coming up immediately, a little housekeeping. We're first going to start off with Senator Cotton, who everyone knows is on the tips of everyone's lip. He might be the next defense secretary. He might not. Maybe he'll let us know. Probably won't, but maybe he will. And he's going to sit down with David Sanger from the New York Times, a friend of mine who I was very glad could come and do this interview. David also covers politics, interviewed Trump himself, very well known, so hopefully we'll have a great talk there. We had a little schedule switch so that following that this morning, we'll have Michael Lumpkin from the State Department, who's running basically the social media war against ISIS. Former special operator, ran the special operations desk at the Pentagon policy team. Well known to many of you, should be well known to a lot more. We'll sit down with Patrick Tucker and talk about that as well. And then the end of the morning, I believe we have Secretary Fanning, Eric Fanning, Army Secretary, who has presided over quite a lot of change with the Army, women in combat, diversity, but not just that, the state of the Army, the shape and the size, where just a couple years ago the Army was supposed to be resetting itself, having a period after the ISIS and Afghanistan wars. Well, that's out the window. Now we've got a buildup in Europe and Russia to deal with as well. And again, going forward, what should be that size? What should be the budget? Throughout the day, also coming forward, we have who else do I have to announce? Following the breakout sessions, we'll have a networking lunch with, I'm very happy to say, with the USO. I did an event with the USO. They asked me to come moderate them. The USO it's their 75th anniversary, and they're really transforming themselves. As I like to say, it's no longer just cookies and cards. They're becoming a transition point for careers and for life for military service members who are coming out of service back into the civilian world. What better place than the USOs, which are already all over the world, to be at that linkage point to things like hiring our heroes and the Chamber of Commerce. So we'll have a good program with that. And a little surprise, if you stayed at the reception, we might have some USO singers. Okay, we are going to have USO singers. But you got to stay to the end for that. And then in the afternoon, we will have Representative Adam Schiff, the ranking Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, who has a few things to say about Trump from his side of the view of the aisle. We also have Marcel Lettre I'll be interviewing. He's the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence. He's had quite a lot of different jobs, from the Chief of Staff at the Pentagon. He worked in Congress, and actually was at Ground Zero on 9/11 as an EMT. He's got quite a story and an interesting perspective on the state of intelligence from the defense view right now. And then we have Arati Prabhakar, the DARPA director, followed in the afternoon with Lisa Monaco, the White House counterterrorism czar, and General David Goldfein, the new Air Force Chief of Staff. So hopefully that's a little something for everyone, and everyone is satisfied and happy and enjoys our breakout sessions as well. Please, if you have any questions, see our staff. Come find me, say hello. I give everyone a big welcome. With that, it's time for this to start off the summit. So please, I think I'm due to just go ahead and welcome Senator Tom Cotton and David Sanger to get us started off for the morning. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the summit.